All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody, and welcome to the Moffett on the Mic radio show. You can catch the show on Spotify. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are pretty much everywhere as we keep this show rolling. I am Craig Moffett, and alongside me, as always, is the one and only Chris Klim.
What's going on, Craig?
So, Klim, it's been a little bit of a minute since we last had a show. Unfortunately, I have two. No, unfortunately, excuse me. Fortunately, I have two great daughters. But unfortunately, their schedules are very tough sometimes to balance. And because of that, we weren't able to do a show for a few weeks, but we're back. And you know what, Clem? It's nice to come back with a guest. And he's one of our favorites, and he's going to be on soon. And we are talking about the one and only Jake Asman, host of the Jake Asman Show. He's on ESPN. He's pretty much everywhere these days. And we got started with Jake when we were on. Well, before it was Sports on the Go 1, he was pretty much the big show on that network with I think his name was Dan Budick also. They were the morning show every day. And Jake is just, blown up. I mean, he's on Radio Row for the Super Bowl. He's everywhere. So he's going to come on the show. We're going to talk some Jets football. We're going to talk about free agency. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And we'll get into some entertainment questions with Jake because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about certain movie characters that Jake is not a fan of. So we'll get into that later. But we're going to talk to him. He should be on probably in about like the next 10 minutes or so. But we are going to kick off our show, and we're going to talk about free agency in the NFL. I really like what the Jets did, to be honest. I thought there was a plan, which you couldn't really say that in the past because before you had Darren Muji take over as general manager, you had Mike McCagnon, who was just a straight up free spender. He buried this team in terrible contracts for the cap. And then he had Joe Douglas, who really took his time. And when you have the legal tampering period and you have the NFL free agency, it's not an area where you just take your time and just go, okay, yeah, we're good, we're fine, and we'll wait and we'll wait and we'll wait. And all these guys get signed up. And then by the time you finally start to pounce, it's not the greatest moves that they make. What I loved about Darren Muji, and listen, I know that Jet fans don't want to give Aaron Glenn the credit, but I think he deserves some credit here because he brought in a few guys that he worked with in New Orleans. He brought it back to Demario Davis for a third stint, and I love Demario Davis. Demario Davis is awesome. Like, I'm so happy he's back with the Jets because what I like about the Demario Davis signing is you could really see a guy like Jamie Sherwood have a major comeback season in 26, more because now there's a veteran there. And the thing is, it's a little unfair to say, well, Sherwood's young and he was inexperienced, because he really wasn't. He was there for 4 years, and he finished off his final year of his rookie contract, had a great season, signed a new contract with the Jets, and he didn't play well last year at all. So maybe having that veteran mentor there like Davis would be awesome. Now, everybody assumed it was going to be Alex Anzalone, who wound up signing with Tampa Bay, but I'll take Demario Davis any day of the week. And that's not a knock on Alex Anzalone, by the way. He's a good player too. Plays a lot of passion, plays a lot of heart. I think he would have been a good leader also. But something about Davis was almost like that the Jets should have never let him go type of thing, because this is the third time he's been with this team. I mean, what does that tell you right there, Cliff? It tells you, like, maybe the Jets should have never let this guy go in the first place. This guy should be a Jet for life.
I always said that about Demario Davis. I've always, like you said, I've always loved Demario Davis. When we had him, when he was here with David Harris, that was a great 1-2 linebacker punch that we have. And, when we got rid of Davis the first time, I was like, all right, whatever. But then we brought him back, and he was even better the second time. And it's like, okay, great. Now we got him back. He's ours. And then we don't sign him back again. Then he's an all-pro for the Saints, and it's like, well, what the heck? But now he's back, and it, not like you said, it helps Jamie and Sherwood out, but it also helps this whole defense out in a way, because what I think the Jets have been lacking in the past couple of years, and maybe Jake will say the same thing when he comes on, we've been lacking a real leader on this defense. Quinnen Williams, he was okay, but maybe you agree with me, maybe you disagree, but he wasn't like an actual leader,
I think that Quinnen Williams is a guy that Jet fans gave a pass to a lot, because they took the whole sum of the team and they basically just said, oh, we really feel bad for Quinnen Williams because he plays for the Jets. They doing the same thing with Breece Hall. Okay. Now I have wrote it in my articles for JetsWire. If you want to check out my work on JetsWire, you can check it out. I've said that Breece Hall is very overrated by this fan base because I don't see a guy who is an elite running back in the league. And last year, he had a very good offensive line to run behind. Probably one of the better offensive lines the Jets have had over the last, let's say, 5 years. Okay. Breece Hall should have been a lot better than just getting over 1,000 yards for the season. Mm-hmm. He should have probably been a 1,200-yard rusher. Easily. 1,200-yard rusher. He got the bulk of the carries. And if you want to look at the stats. He had, I think, 243 carries last year for the Jets, while Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis only combined for like 60. So you can tell that Glenn was doing everything in his power and Tanner Angstrom was doing everything in his power to feed him the ball. And I never got the sense that he was that hard-nosed runner that the Jets need. He's more of like a finesse back. He looks for the hole and then he'll take off. But he's not that hard-nosed runner, that physical runner that the Jets really need.
Right. You know,
now,
we haven't had a guy like that in a while.
But I'm perfectly fine with them bringing him back on the franchise tag, and I think they'll get a deal done. When it's all said and done, I think he will sign for a few years, and I think he'll be fine. Because I think if Darren Muji didn't want to keep him, he would have traded him before the deadline last year. He would have probably traded him to the Chiefs, or he would have franchised him now and then tag and traded him to another team. What I like about the DeMario Davis signing is it's a veteran. He's 37, I know. He's definitely on the older side, but the guy is very durable. He's a great leader. He's not going to let this team fall into that funk when they're down 21-0 and then just want to quit. That's not what DeMario Davis is going to do. DeMario Davis is going to do everything in his power to keep this team fighting. But then on top of that, they had another guy who I felt was, it's definitely a steal when you look at it from a broader perspective. But the trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick in the secondary. Now, Fitzpatrick was only 29 years old. He didn't have a great season last year with Miami. I think he only had 2 interceptions, but that's 2 more than the entire Jets defense had. Mm-hmm. And right away, they gave him a 3-year, $40 million extension. So he's here for the long haul. And that's exactly the type of veteran presence you need in the secondary. Now you take a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick, pair him with a Malachi Moore, pair him with a lot of people love this signing too. An underrated signing was Dane Belton from the Giants.
Yes.
Guy's got a nose for the football. He knows what he's doing. I think he was more of a special teams player, but he also played safety a lot for the Giants last year. Another solid signing there. Do I think they should add another veteran? I don't know who's available now, but I think safety will get addressed more in the draft. They brought back Andre Sisco for another year, which is fine. I'm perfectly content with that. He's not going to start. He's probably going to be more of a depth player. But they're definitely going to address safety in the draft because the safety class is huge. Mm-hmm. It's very deep this year. And when you have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds, this is your time now to really, really focus on that defense.
You know, and I've talked about it with my friends who are Jets fans, and I've said it. It's like it feels like the Jets are like right there, but they're not right there. But after the moves they made this offseason, you know, if they can hit it correctly in this draft with their first 4 picks and next year's draft, the Jets can make a total 360 in the coming years.
But then you take a look at, they get their quarterback also. They bring back Geno. All right. And again, it didn't cost them anything. It literally only cost them a pick swap. And they're only paying like $3 million. That's a pretty impressive haul, man. Like, that's a pretty good move for the Jets. They're not paying like a bulk of the salary. And a lot of people were like, well, why did the Jets trade for Geno? They traded for Geno because they were afraid a team was going to move in and try to sign him. And I don't blame them for that. You have to be proactive. If this is the guy you definitely want, you can't wait and hope that for free agency, he's going to sign with you. Because what if he
Right.
gets a better offer from the Steelers? What if he gets a better offer from another team that needs a starting quarterback?
Right.
Then then it's an issue of, do the Jets want to pay that kind of money? We don't know. But the Jets decided to be proactive, which is a smart move. And you trade for the guy. And all you really gave up at the end of the day was what? I think a 6th-round pick, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Which I think they got back when they traded Justin Fields to Kansas City.
Yeah. So it's essentially the
a
Jets
wash.
essentially traded. Yeah, I was gonna say the Jets essentially just traded Justin Fields for Geno Smith. And to be honest, that's an upgrade in my opinion. We upgraded a quarterback. And this is what I said a few weeks ago when we last did our show, that I mean, I personally wanted it to be Carson Wentz. But the Jets, they sign a guy like Geno Smith. He's not going to be here very long. Where the Jets are looking towards the 2027 draft, when you have guys like Arch Manning, Lenore Sellers, Dante Moore, CJ Carr, Dylan Raiola. You have all those guys coming into that draft class, and now they have their pick of the litter, because they're essentially going to run with Geno Smith as their starting quarterback this year.
But I like what they did for the most part. I like the signings. I like the fact they bring in a guy like David Onyemata. I like the fact they brought in Joseph Asai from the Bengals and Kingsley Enagbare from the Packers to pair with, what they focused on a lot, according to what I'm reading, is run defense. When they acquired Tavondre Sweat, that's a big guy in the middle that they really need. Kingsley Enagbare is a very good against the run. So is David Onyemata. Joseph Asai had 5 sacks last year for the Bengals. He's off of his rookie contract now on his second contract. It sounds more and more likely that the Jets are going to look at a pass rusher with the number 2 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
But now there's some different wrinkles, because there are a lot of reports going around that teams who want Jeremiah Love, from the running back from Notre Dame, might have to trade up to get him. So now the Jets could be in a situation where, look, I don't know how high they are in Jeremiah Love, if they want Jeremiah Love, but I think if you really wanted Jeremiah Love, you wouldn't be sitting there right now trying to negotiate with Breece Hall. So now the Jets could be in a position where if a team really wants Jeremiah Love, they could trade with the Jets to move up to 2. Mm-hmm. There's some reports he may not last past 3 to the Cardinals. The Titans might want him at 4.
I was playing this scenario out in my head. You talk about trading picks. When the whole Max Crosby thing was going down, I was doing a little football math in my head. I'm like, well, if the Jets traded one of their first-round picks this year, and they traded next year first-round pick, we essentially only traded one first-round pick, because we're going to use that second overall pick to get either sign David Bailey or Arvell Reese. We might as well have gotten Max Crosby, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think the Jets wanted to give up that capital, though. I don't think they wanted to give up 2 first-round picks. I don't think that it's not a knock against Crosby, by the way. So let me just get that out of the way. He's one of the top pass rushers in the league. I just think that the Jets didn't want to have that big of a contract on their cap right now. And one thing, if you notice about Darren Muji with the way he's made these moves, is that he's really thinking about the team's future, not only from a draft perspective, but a cap perspective.
Right.
So he's put in, right now the Jets are about, I think if I read it correctly, about $36 million still left to spend.
Mm-hmm. There's
no more free agency. So Muji's going to wait this out a bit, because guys aren't really being signed right now. He could take his time. He can get the guys he wants at his price at this point. There's still a few good veteran receivers out there that he can wait on. There's not a big rush in that market. Jawan Jennings apparently wants $20 million a year. He's not going to get that from any team. Christian Kirk is available. There was one other receiver, I can't remember who it was, that was available. But those guys are not really, there's no pressing need by any other team in the NFL to sign these guys tomorrow.
Right.
So their attitude is basically like, okay, we're good right now. We made the signings we need to make. We brought back, and lost in all that too are the guys they brought back for next year. They have the depth on the offensive line again in the reserves with Max Mitchell, with Okorofor, who they signed last year from the Steelers. They bring back Andre Sisco for depth. I mean, they've made some really good moves. They signed the Nashawn Wright from the Bears, 5 interceptions last year.
Led the league.
Pretty good cover corner. So between Nashawn Wright and Minkah Fitzpatrick, that's 7 interceptions combined between those 2 players alone. Now you look at the other side. And then you see the rest of the defense. Linebacker really needs to be stressed. I think it's a very underappreciated position because they're kind of the quarterback. There's been some talk that they might look at Sonny Styles at 2 overall. I don't know if it's considered a reach. I mean, the thing is, at that selection, it's kind of it's a bit of a crapshoot. A lot of people love Arvell Reese. I would be very happy with Arvell Reese. But a lot of people love Sonny Styles. And Sonny Styles is shooting up draft boards.
Craig, I hate to cut you off here, but our special guest is here.
Put him through. Joining us right now, he is a good friend of the show. He is host of the Jake Asman Show. And we always love his opinions on Rose from Titanic, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. He is the one and only Jake Asman. Jake, thank you as always for being on our show. You've been blowing up over for a year or so, and congratulations on all your success, man. We really love seeing you successful, and we always love when you take the time to come talk to us on our show.
Well, fellas, thanks for having me. But I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I feel like the show's gone far away, so I'm just honored to be back. I miss doing this. It's been fun over the years.
I just reached out. There was backstory on how we got started again. Clem was on Instagram, and he was just going off on the CFP with Notre Dame. And then that just prompted me to reach out to him and say, hey, you want to do the show again? And then here we are, like just doing a few shows since. And, it's always great to have a good guest like you come on our show. So thank you very much.
I appreciate it, man. You guys are great sports fans, great Jet fans, obviously. And, well, let's chop it up. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. So my first question to you is, after the first week of free agency, I mean, obviously the signings were good, but did you get the feeling that the Jets finally had a plan in place just for the way the calculated moves for the veteran additions and just kind of keeping it like where the Jets have plenty of cap space if they want to keep making moves and adding another player? Did you think that it just never seemed like a strategy in the past, and now I felt like this was like a great strategy by Darren Muji? I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think they acted like adults, if you want to like describe it that way. I mean, they didn't do anything that you just scratch your head and go, huh? What? Like what? Like I don't think they gave out any onerous contracts. I think they raised the floor of what their team is. And I think they had a plan. I think clearly, Darren Muji, knowing that Aaron Glenn's taking over the defense, worked with Aaron Glenn on getting players that fit what they need to accomplish defensively to give Glenn a chance to prove, his superpower is calling plays and he can win enough games to maybe save his job, right? Like that's really what it comes down to. So I like a lot of the moves. I think if you just kind of look at how they're now set up going into the draft, it feels like they spent to fix the defense in free agency, and they're going to add probably a defensive player at number 2 to that defense. But it wouldn't surprise me if pick 16, 33, 44, you told me they were all offensive players, I wouldn't be shocked because it's kind of set up for them to basically use the draft to get a receiver, maybe 2, get an interior offensive lineman, potentially add another tight end. I think they're kind of in a spot where they spent big on fixing the D, and then that could potentially mean the offense, those needs get addressed in the draft.
Yeah, it's because I have to agree with Craig, because it's like they didn't go out and get the best players or like the shiny players this year. Like we've seen in the past with them signing like a Tremaine Johnson or a Le'Veon Bell. Like you said, Jake, they signed guys who will fit into Aaron Glenn's system. You're bringing back Demario Davis. You bring in Nashawn Wright. You brought in Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's like, okay, like we got something going here. Like this was smart thinking. And for once, like you said, they're being adults about this. They're being smart, and I couldn't be more excited about the picks they got, even the depth pieces they brought in as well.
I agree. I do agree. I think if you kind of just look at like the roster, they have like an NFL level roster now, as crazy as that is to say. Like they were playing a team at the end of the year that was not an NFL roster, was not an NFL defense. They already had some pieces on offense, and they clearly are going to be in a better position when they get Garrett back and Geno Smith. For anyone who has issues with him, like at the bare minimum, every Jet fan should be able to agree he's infinitely better than Justin Fields or Brady Cook or the version of Tyrod that we saw this year. Like I think they, again, have raised the floor of their team. I don't know what their ceiling is necessarily, because I think a lot of fans still rightfully have questions about the head coach. And even with Geno being better than, let's say, Fields, he's going to be 36. He has thrown 32 interceptions the last 2 years. So like what version of Geno Smith are you getting? But just as far as like the roster itself, it's not an expansion level roster now. You at least could say, hey, Aaron Glenn, like you're here, you're calling the defense. We now can evaluate you properly on what you are because you have legitimate players on that side of the ball to coach up.
With the draft, you were talking before with pick 16 and they have pick 33, and you could see them going offense with those picks. Wouldn't be a surprise. With what's left over in free agency, because right now it's very slim pickings at this point, especially at receiver. Jawan Jennings, I think, is still the only really free agent out there who had 9 touchdowns last year for the Niners. I also saw Christian Kirk is available. So my question is, do you think it makes more sense to just go through the draft and just draft 2 receivers with either 16, 33, or 44, of some combination of both? So that way you have Garrett Wilson, 2 young receivers, and you have A.D. Mitchell as well.
I'm certainly not against it, Craig. I think it comes down to their board, right? And like who's on the board when they're picking. If they took a receiver at 16 and 44, for example, I could see that. I would have 0 issues with it. It feels like they have put themselves in a spot where if 16 or 33 is not a receiver, I'd be very surprised because, again, look at their receiver room right now. Like, who's Geno throwing to besides Garrett and A.D. Mitchell? Like Isaiah Williams, Arian Smith? Like, I don't know about that. So I do see the scenario where they double up on a receiver, and I would not be against that. You just got to hope if they do make that decision, they get it right because it's been a long time since the Jets hit on a non-first round wide receiver. You go back to Denzel Mims and Elijah Moore and Adarius Stewart and Chad Hansen and Stephen Hill. And like every Jet fan is just like having nightmares as I say it, and I apologize, but it's like it's been a long time since they hit on a Jeremy Curley or Jericho Cotchery or Lavernius Coles. They have been completely inept at drafting day 2 or day 3 receivers. So I would love if 16 was a receiver, just so I feel like Jet history, we have a better chance of that player actually not being terrible.
So speaking of the draft, with the 2nd overall pick, who do you think they're going to draft, and who would you rather draft? Would you rather them see draft Arvell Reese? Because I think all Jet fans know the linebacker core was atrocious last year, and still it's gotten better with the signing of Demario Davis. Or would you rather them see like a pure pass rusher like David Bailey?
So I lean with Arvell Reese because he's 20. I think there's more of an upside there, and I think he's also a lot better as a rusher than people give him credit for. They'll say, well, he didn't have all the stats, but when he actually did rush the passer, he was really good at it. He was really efficient at it. He just didn't get as many chances to do it because of the defense that Ohio State was deploying him in. I like Bailey as well. He's, to me, though, more of like the safer pick. Like, okay, if you just want a guy that's just going to get to the quarterback, and there's nothing wrong with that. He'll have probably 10+ sacks every year, you'd think. Like, I understand the thought process, but I've come around on this. I think when you're at number 2 in the draft, you're trying to draft a superstar. And I think if Arvell Reese hits his full potential, he might be the best player in this draft at a premium position. So I lean with Reese at this point.
So one of the other stories so far with the Jets in the offseason is the franchise tagging of Breece Hall. And there's been some talk that they are working on a deal, but nothing is really imminent yet. And now the Jets might be waiting until after the draft to really hammer out that contract with Breece Hall. My question is, because Breece Hall sends a lot of mixed feelings, I don't get the sense that he wants to be here, but then I kind of do get the sense he wants to stay. So maybe they just need a little bit more of a selling point. But do you see these negotiations getting maybe like ugly at some point where the Jets may not have a choice but to tag and trade him? I mean, they've already tagged him, but the question becomes like if Breece is like really going to be like, okay, I want $17 million a year to stay here. I mean, do you see it getting ugly at any point, or do you think Breece and Muji will just hammer it out and everything will be good?
I mean, I certainly hope it doesn't get to that point. I don't know if Breece is going to go full Jamal Adams and, bash, the Jet organization on social media, or I guess Jamal did it to Manish in the Daily News at that time. He bashed Adam Gase and then the Jets traded him. I don't think Breece will go down that path. I don't know if it will be smooth, but I do expect Breece to get a deal based on what has been reported that they've, made some progress and they have every intention of getting something done. I think he's a Jet. I just don't know if is he on the tag for a year or does he sign a 2 or 3 year extension? I hope it's an extension because I think the last thing you need if you're the Jets is they get up to a bad start and then you're just doing the trade deadline speculation with Breece all over again. I think you find a way to work something out where you give him a 3-year deal and you don't have to worry about Breece Hall's future going into the season.
Now, Jake, I know you were very vocal about firing Aaron Glenn this offseason, as was I. I wanted him gone. I agree with
Vocal.
you 1,000% with Aaron. I didn't want it, it was just not good. And I'm like, are we really about to rebuild our franchise with a guy who won us 2 games? Like I didn't know, so but we kept him here, he's here. Looks like he's in for maybe the long haul, but I can't we obviously I think he's on the hot seat in this coming season. So what's the minimum number of games the Jets have to win for him to keep his job?
I think he's got to win at least 7 games, guys. And I don't think you're wrong for feeling how you felt about Glenn. I mean, he was awful in year one. I mean, the people that try to make excuses for him, I mean, why? Like we deserve more as Jet fans. This guy came in and all the big decisions he made backfired. His coaching staff hires were an abomination. I mean, he fired 9 of his 21 assistants other than Hugh Jackson. Glenn's the only guy the last 25 years that has done that after his first season. Like, it was crazy. Both coordinators were fired. It's been bad. Like, people act like it's like you're crazy to feel that way. Like, Aaron Glenn is bad. If you're doing a coaching draft right now, he's the 32nd coach in said draft. And that's just kind of where we're at. So he's got to win games. He's got to show that he's improved, that he's learned from his mistakes. I mean, people will be like, oh, but Jake, they were tanking. Well, they started 0-7 when they were trying to win. And he didn't know, how long the game-winning field goal yardage was in that London game afterwards. That was like, it just the way that half was handled, just like ingrained in my mind. Like he was in over his head. We could say it. I hope he improves. I'm rooting for him. I want him to make me look like a fool for questioning the great Aaron Glenn. But I think a lot of Jet fans, you might like the GM, but how could you really love the long-term direction of the team when you don't have confidence in the head coach? So I think they need to get out to a good start, and we could say, oh, they need to win at least 7 games. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily the win total. It's how you get to the win total. Remember, Adam Gase went 7-9 in his first year. He started 1-7 and basically lost all the fans at that point. No one wanted him in the first place. Then he gets off to the terrible start. You never were actually like sold on Gase, even though after a 1-7 start, they did have a 6-2 second half of the year. Glenn started 0-7 in year one, the worst start to a Jet coaching tenure ever. So he's got to start 3-3 through 6. He's got to at least be 2-4 through 6, and that might be generous because I'm if he starts 1-5, are we sure Woody's not pulling the trigger? Are we sure that Glenn's not this year's Brian Callahan? If he starts 1-5 and is 4-19 overall as his record, they got Frank Reich on the staff who you could promote to the interim head coach. So as we sit here, to me, like, there's just a lot of questions with him. And I think if you're a Jet fan, you have every right to be questioning whether or not he's going to be the guy long term. He's got to win games or he won't be here going into 2027.
Go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say no, because that was because even like the signing of Frank Reich made me think, like, yeah, he's a great OC, but is signing Frank Reich like kind of like a safety move? Like, well, is Woody Johnson going to pull the plug on Aaron Glenn, and we could just be like, okay, Frank Reich's there. He's got head coaching experience. He can lead the team the rest of the way until the season ends. But like, that's what made me think of the Frank Reich signing, at least.
Yeah, I mean, look, Frank Reich, he's a professional, but he's also 64. Wasn't in football last year. I know he coached Stanford. It wasn't in the NFL. What does he have left? Right? Like I think he might be better than some of the alternatives that were floated out there, but like I don't know. Like, Glenn needs Frank Reich to still be really good at his job, and Glenn can't, start slow as the play caller on defense. Like, can you get an interception week 1 and put that to bed right away? Like, just how they come out early in the year will really show us a lot about what type of team they are.
This is not a knock against Geno Smith, but all I kept reading when Frank Reich was hired was he likes bigger quarterbacks, like bigger, stronger quarterbacks, like 6'3", 6'4", like 235, like, basically guys who could absorb hits and all that stuff. And yet when they brought Geno Smith in, I was very happy with Geno, but I just kept thinking that line in Roadhouse when, they'd say to Dalton, like, oh, I thought you'd be bigger, because it just had this vibe to me. Like, Geno doesn't strike me as a Reich type of quarterback from everything I read about what he likes in his quarterbacks, just like that, again, size and everything. But now I want to segue to Robert Saleh, because with Robert Saleh now in Tennessee, the pattern of him bringing in all the former Jets from his coaching days, and I'm talking trading for Solomon Thomas and signing Tony Adams. And in your opinion, just by seeing the guys that he's brought in, maybe outside of the trade for Jermaine Johnson, because I actually like Jermaine Johnson a lot, do you get the sense that Robert Saleh really didn't learn anything from his time with the Jets?
Yes and no. I think he learned he needs to go to a team that has the quarterback in place. He's betting on Cam Ward being that guy. He hired Dable, who, some years he was pretty good in New York, other years he wasn't. But I mean, Dable, I think, took that job because he evaluated Cam Ward and thinks, okay, this guy's pretty good. I can coach him up. We can win with him. If that hire is correct and Cam Ward's legit, I think Saleh will fix that defense. We know whatever you want to say about him. He's a hell of a defensive coach. So they'll be better. I just don't know enough about Cam Ward, whether I think he's going to be good or not. If the answer is yes, I think Saleh will have a much better tenure because I think the market of New York was too big for him. He tried to control the narrative and the messaging, and you just can't do that in this city. In Tennessee, it's a lot different. There's less scrutiny. He'll be friendly with the media there. They won't give him as hard of a time. I do think Robert Saleh is in a pretty good spot, assuming Cam Ward is not awful. He's going to be better than Zach Wilson, but how much better is he going to be relative to other quarterbacks in the league? That I don't know yet, because last year was a disaster for that franchise, and he was okay, but what do we really know about what he is at this point?
Now, with the making the trade for Geno Smith, I personally think that was just a sign of, hey, we're punting on quarterback this season, and we're going to go into 2027. As I saw today, I think someone posted it. They said it's the march for Arch. Going back to what I said about Aaron Glenn, got to win 7 games. If he's winning 7 games, we're not going to see Arch Manning. So who would you rather see the Jets draft at quarterback next year in the first round, or with one of our 3 first-round picks?
So early to even say it, but I mean, march for Arch, man. Why not? Until I see otherwise. Yeah, he feels like he'll be the top guy, but we know how this goes. It will change a lot. I do think next year's class, I know we've said this in the past, will be a lot better than this year. I don't think it's going to be like what we have this year where it's Mendoza and then a debate if Ty Simpson's even worth being a first-round pick and then no one else emerging into that conversation. I do think next year they're set up. And look, they have the picks to move around the board if they have to. I think in an ideal world, you don't, and you could just stick and pick and build your team. But, I lean with Arch being the best. But, again, it's March, and we still got a year and change before that decision will happen. So ask me in a year, and I'll have a much better answer for you.
I'm a firm believer that there's always a little bit of truth to a rumor. And earlier this week, Mike Francesa had reported that the organizational structure was different now with the Jets, and that Muji kind of is in control and Glenn doesn't really have as much power, I think. If I remember, I didn't hear exactly what he said, but it was basically implied that Glenn's power is not what it used to be. And my question to you is, how much do you believe of that to be true? And if it is true, hypothetically, if Muji was the one that was kind of pulling the strings and making the final decisions, knowing that he brought in Glenn guys like Onyemata, Demario Davis, are those guys coming to the Jets if Muji's really the one pulling the strings, or is it really doesn't really matter because Glenn is the coach and they know him pretty well anyway?
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Craig. I think Mike didn't just make that up, right? Now, how much of all that is true? I'm not sure, but doesn't it feel like if you've just been following the Jets, Muji's in better standing with the organization than Aaron Glenn? You had the Woody report with Wink Martindale. You had Glenn firing all these coaches. If you watch the end of season presser, Muji took on much more of a vocal role in that press conference, and multiple people in the room noted that it felt different. It felt like Muji was in more command and Glenn was no longer like the rah-rah, it's all me, it's my team, and Muji's the sidekick. That was then. That was before any reports came out. I had Rich Samiti on my show right before free agency, and Rich noted that he could see a scenario where Muji's here and Glenn isn't. He even said the quote, Muji's no sidekick. I think the idea that Glenn is still running the show and nothing's changed, I don't believe that to be true. And I think Connor Hughes shutting down Mike's reporting, I don't want to say where Connor's getting his info from, but wouldn't surprise me if someone with the Jets wanted to try and fight that narrative and said, hey, no, it's not true. Report that it's not true. That's kind of how these things go. I don't think Connor's making it up. I don't think Mike's making it up. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. And at the end of the day, if Muji has a good draft, but this team only wins 4 or 5 games, I could see him being here and Glenn not being here. I don't think that's far-fetched to say. I think Muji, given the decisions he's had to make and some of the limitations on just how much he can actually impact this team, I think he's done his job at a much higher level to this point than Aaron Glenn has done his.
But does it remind you in a way of remember like Rex Ryan's like last couple of years when the bravado was gone and Rex really subdued? Almost like it's eerily similar in a way. Like just like you said, like with Muji holding the cards, like Glenn is not the more rah-rah person. Whereas it just reminds me of Rex's last 2 years with the Jets, you know, after they just kind of nosedived and they just went into losing seasons. He just wasn't the same. Like he wasn't the same braggadocious guy. He wasn't the same, didn't have that same bravado. It was almost like you didn't really believe him when he told you how much confidence he had in the team or faith he had, you know, how good players are playing and stuff like that. You know, do you kind of see like a similarity between those two times? Like, you know, does that mean, in your opinion, Glenn, you know, Woody could be pulling the plug early if the Jets get off to another bad start?
I definitely think he could. I mean, Woody's getting up there in age, right? Like he wants to see this team, I'd imagine, not be an absolute disaster. By the way, another thing with the Glenn Muji stuff, Samini had a report on his podcast that Woody was pissed with the last 5 games of the year. He wasn't on board with the tanking and how they were losing. They lost by an NFL record 25 or more 5 straight weeks. Like, again, there's a lot of signs there to me that Glenn needs to win. Otherwise, he could be out. I don't know if Woody would fire him in the middle of the year, but it wouldn't shock me. Again, if Aaron Glenn starts 1-5 and he's 4-19 as his record, why shouldn't he be fired? You know, like that's just kind of how this goes. Like there's less patience in sports now more than ever before. And I just think people aren't going to sit here and try and listen to the Jets or Aaron Glenn sell us on this like master plan that takes years to build. That's not football. That's not how the NFL works nowadays. You don't get that much time. And you especially don't get a ton of time if you're not showing any improvement, any progress. So how they start the year, Craig, I think is everything for this team.
So, Jay, I saw you tweeted earlier today that, you know, taking, you know, you pointed out Ty Simpson at 16 is an unnecessary risk. Now, knowing Jets fans, how upset do you think that Jets fans will be knowing that we're going into the season with Geno Smith, Brady Cook, and Bailey Zapp as our quarterbacks? How do you think Jet fans are going to react if they don't draft a quarterback this year? Like not even Ty Simpson, but like maybe like not even drafting like a Drew Aller or a Carson Beck this year.
I think if they took Ty at 16, it'd be very mixed from the fan base initially. And then we'd rally around the guy and be like, all right, well, like we want him to do well. Like he's our guy. I would not take him at 16. I happen to like Ty a lot. I just think when you talk about a player who's made 15 career starts and just the outlier he would be for him to be successful, it's tough to justify that to me at 16 when I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Jets coaching staff going into the year. If they took him at 33, I think people would understand it. 44 would be a home run. I don't know if he's there at 44. I don't know if he's even there at 33. I think most fans are reasonable in understanding that the long-term answer is probably playing college football this year. So you just got to bridge the year to get to that point. But if they took him at 16, I think it'd be crazy. And then eventually we'd rally around him. And if the Jets got off to a poor start, you know, instead of going to whoever the backup is after Geno, it'd be cool to go to Ty and at least have the hope, hey, he's getting his experience. Maybe he can be our guy. But I don't think they're going to take him at 16. I think the only way they would take him would be if he was there in the second round with one of their 2 second-round picks.
You know, that's what I always feel like it is. Like the Jets will – it's like they signed – like when I know for me, for Zach, it was an example with Zach Wilson. It's like, oh, great, we drafted Zach Wilson. Then a month later, you know what? I'm waiting on Zach Wilson. Like I feel like that's just Jets fans all the time. Like it's like, oh, great, Ryan Fitzpatrick's starting, and then we rally around Ryan Fitzpatrick. Same thing with Josh McCown and every quarterback. It's like, shit, this guy. It's like, okay, great, we're here for it.
Yeah, it's how we are, right? Like we're just dying for anything. We are emotional. Again, people would freak out, but if you remember, there's videos of Bills fans where they drafted Josh Allen going nuts and being unhappy with that, and now he's a god in Buffalo, New York. So, like again, if they took him, I don't love it at 16. I like him as a person. I'd root for him because he's a Jet. He's our guy, and we got to support him.
I'm going to pivot away from the Jets for a minute. I want to talk about the Knicks. I know you're a big Knicks guy. The last few games, I know they've won 3 in a row, and the other night against Golden State, against pretty much a lot of backups, they had to come back from 20 points to eventually beat Golden State. My question to you, I was watching ESPN this morning with Stephen A. and Brian Windhorst. Is that his name? Brian Windhorst, is that his?
Yep.
All right. So, and Brian Windhorst made a good point. He was like, yeah, they won, but it was kind of like an unimpressive win or just uninspiring in a way, because they had to come back from 20. They didn't have Steph Curry in that game. They really have anybody in that game for the Warriors. In your opinion, if the Knicks, my thing is the Knicks have to win it all this year. I think they've taken enough steps. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and then the year before that, before they got eliminated. In your opinion right now, if the Knicks don't win it all this year, what are the likelihood of you seeing major changes with the roster?
Look, if they don't at least get to the finals, I think there'll be major changes. If they get to the finals and let's say they lose in 6 and it's highly competitive, I don't know if it automatically means there'll be major changes. There'll be changes naturally, but a major change to me is, all right, we've tried this. Now we're all in on Giannis. Let's find a way to get it done. I don't know if they do that. If they get to the finals and lose, if they don't get to the finals, though, I do think there'll be, a major changes. We're talking about everything being on the table besides probably Brunson being down. Like everyone else, I think would be in the right package, probably be available in a trade.
Now I'm going to go away from the Knicks. And I always love having you on the show, Jake, because I know you're an Ithaca alum, and the Ithaca Cortica game is probably one of my favorite games I watch every year. So how hyped were you that Ithaca won this year?
It was fun to watch. I haven't watched the team obviously that much since I graduated a while ago at this point, but every year you're 100% spot on. Like Cortica's a blast, and it's at Yankee Stadium this upcoming year for the second ever time. It's been at MetLife, it's been at Yankee Stadium, and now to do it at Yankee Stadium again is really cool. So I'm looking forward to that next year. Hopefully Ithaca wins again because I want bragging rights over some of my friends I know that went to Cortland. But that's going to be an absolute blast, and man, it's kind of surreal knowing I'll be going to Yankee Stadium in November to watch an Ithaca game for the second time. But hopefully it's coming after a Yankee World Series championship because I'm a big Yankees fan as well.
All right, Jake, this is my last question. We're gonna go off of sports. We're done with sports. Every time we had you on our show in the past, we are always reminded of your feelings towards Rose from Titanic. If I remember correctly, if I wish I could find the audio of you labeling what she did to Jack a quote war crime. Okay,
sounds about right.
Now, I was watching a podcast. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they got into talking about Forrest Gump. And I got to talk about basically how Jenny is just a horrible individual who takes advantage of Forrest and comes back into his life knowing that he has like millions or billions of dollars from the shrimp company, only to eventually tell him, oh, yeah, he's your kid and all that stuff. So my question to you right now, Jake, is who is the bigger villain in your mind? Is it still Rose from Titanic or is it Jenny from Forrest Gump?
Both excellent villains. I see what you did there. So I'm still gonna stay with Rose for this reason. Rose, it's bad enough she murdered Jack Dawson. Like we can just say it. All right, war crimes committed, all that. I think the most egregious thing is at the end of the movie when she's wearing the necklace that's worth I don't know how much millions of dollars, who knows, and she just throws it in the ocean. Like you know how much money that thing could have been worth for her family, her grandchildren to go to school, have that all paid for. A down payment on a home for someone. That always just blows my mind. That it's bad enough she's a murderer and got away with it, but she just takes this necklace and just chucks it into the Atlantic Ocean like it's nothing. So I lean with her because she's like Jenny was bad and she affected Forrest. But that's one person. Rose murdered someone and then her selfishness potentially impacted her grandchildren, however many she has, and her family in general. So I lean with Rose, but I see the argument for both sides. I won't lie to you.
But Jenny,
I have
Jenny
basically
like teased Forrest for 2.5 hours of the movie because she just
She did.
shows up at
She
these
let him
random
off.
places.
Yeah.
You know, and then like all of a sudden she's like, all right, got to go with a bunch of hippies to wherever it is we're going. So take care, Forrest, and we'll see you soon. And she just always popped up at like these ridiculous times. And then she just finally shows. And then when he finally goes to see her, it's like all this happens. It's like almost like she knows that he's worth like billions of dollars. And she's like, okay, I'll marry you now and I'll go live with you. And then, you know, I'm going to pass away in a month or so. I definitely see your point about Rose, because yes, the necklace and just the fact that like you mean to tell me you couldn't make any room on that suitcase for Jack, just a little bit. I mean,
so selfish. I mean, move over. The guy's putting his life on the line for you, and she's like, "Nah, we're good. See you later."
I'll let you
know
freeze
what
to
it is?
death. Like,
You know what it is though? If you like even do a deeper analyzation into Titanic, we're like skipping the fact that everyone thinks that Cal was this bad guy. I think he perfectly acted rationally to his fiance running off with this homeless dude after meeting him for like a day or two. Like people are just like, oh, how can you side with Cal? Very simply, I think in 1910 I would have done the same thing. Like people like she cheated on him, slept with him on a cruise after meeting him for a day. Like
It's a pretty good point.
Like,
Honestly, Cal is misunderstood. I feel like there needs to be more discourse. Should we be Team Cal?
I'm team
that's
Cal.
a fair point actually. I mean, now that I look at it from that perspective, he definitely did act how normal people would act.
Yes, in that time
or...
frame, not today's time frame. Let's not say he starts shooting people up nowadays.
No,
but
I wouldn't go that far, Clem.
In that time age of 1910, girls, you know, yeah, it was unfortunate that she was like being forced to marry Cal, but that's what was happening back in that day. So him, and you know what, he generally loved Rose because at the end when they're on the other boat, he goes down to look for her. Like he's still in love with her to the point that like he's hoping she survived, hoping that he could still be married to her, you know. And people are like, "Oh, well, he was a bad guy. He did this. He did that." In my eyes, he acted perfectly rationally. To be perfectly honest.
Yeah, probably not the best guy, but not the worst guy to a point where his wife should be cheating on him with a homeless guy she met on a cruise ship. I do think that is a fair point.
Exactly.
Okay, so I know it's been a long time since we last had you on the show, but your feelings have not changed much. Rose is still the most evil of the most evil villain among all the heroines who are supposed to be like positive characters in movies.
Yeah, I feel like Rose gets like the heroic tag, and not enough people talk about her war crimes that she committed. So I'm just glad that me raising this point to you guys years ago has resonated, where here we are still discussing it. Like that's the most impactful thing maybe I've ever said, perhaps.
It's pretty funny because when we were talking about getting in touch with you to have you on, I just always remember that we always had that conversation about Rose. And I think it was over multiple shows that we would talk about this.
Yeah.
And then that's when it just kept coming up, and it just always made me laugh because you were definitely, the more I see it, I can't unsee it now. Yeah. That she's just an evil individual who just lets him die and freeze to death in the water, when all she had to do was just make a little bit of room on the luggage, and she would have been, and then they both would have probably survived.
The woat. Can we agree? The worst to ever do it. Worst of all time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think even so too, the difference between Rose and why can't I think of Jenny? I think everyone knows Jenny's a human bag of shit. People, like you said, like Rose is like, oh, she gets like this like fair maiden, like a fairy tale, but meanwhile we've seen Jenny, we know what Jenny is. So that Rose is definitely way worse than Jenny.
I agreed. I agreed. I feel like Rose gets the label of this hero and part of this forever classic, and she could do no wrong. She did plenty wrong, and we called it out.
The only thing I would have wished at the end of Titanic was after she told that whole story of the deep sea divers that she's talking to or whatever, and they're like, wait a minute, so let me see if I have this right. You could have saved that guy and you let him die?
It's so true.
Jake, this was awesome as always, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on our show. We love having you on. Congratulations again on all of your success with ESPN Radio and the Jake Asman Show. I always watch the YouTube clips. Always love to see your latest vitriol towards Aaron Glenn at times. But I really do appreciate you taking the time to come on our show, and it's good to have you back on, man.
Likewise, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm glad the podcast is back. Looking forward to listening. And hopefully when we do this again, we're feeling a lot better about the Jets going forward.
One can only hope, man.
Yep.
Listen, again, thank you so much for taking the time out, and have a great, enjoy everything, and again, continue best of luck on your continued success with ESPN and all the show and everything. All right.
You got it, guys. Thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Jake. That is the one and only Jake Asman, host of the Jake Asman Show. You can catch his show daily on YouTube. Always putting out Jets content. Always has some great guests on his show. You should definitely check him out. And he's also, part-time contributor to ESPN Radio New York, so definitely check out the show there too. Anytime we can get Jake on the show, we always have a lot of laughs, and he's one of the most insightful people when it comes to Jets football, and we really appreciate him taking the time to talk to us here on the Moffett on the Mic show.
Like the one thing with Jake is like he's like us. He's a diehard, very passionate Jets fan, and it's always good to talk to people like that. Because like there are times like you talk to guys who it's like oh this, and you can hear them talking out of their ass. But like Jake, he's like us. Like he's diehard. He watches the games. He buys the jerseys. He's got the memorabilia. He's like us. So that's why I always love talking to Jake as well.
But he makes a very valid point too. I mean, it's the adults are in the room, and that's what you really wanted to see. There had to be a plan. And last year, when you take a look at what the Jets did last year free agency wise, the big signing was basically Justin Fields, right? Mm-hmm. Last year. Most of the other signings were just these 1-year deals, very team friendly. In a way, and this is not to say that Aaron Glenn, I'm not giving Aaron Glenn a pass or anything for last year. They went with a strategy of let's bring in guys that maybe just haven't realized their potential with their current teams. So when they brought in guys like, Josh Reynolds was maybe the exception to the rule because he played in Denver when Muji was there. He played in Detroit when Glenn was there. So he might be the exception to the rule. But, Tyler Johnson was a guy. Andre Sisco was a guy. Then with the defensive line with Byron Cowart, Jay Tufeli. They just brought in guys on these 1-year contracts and hoping that they struck lightning in a bottle. The problem was it's a huge risk. Because if it doesn't pan out, you're basically screwed for the season. Yeah. Because there's no depth whatsoever. And then you're forcing guys like Arian Smith to step into roles they're not quite prepared for. They're not ready to step into a wide receiver 2 role because Josh Reynolds got hurt. And Tyler Johnson was inactive for a decent part of the season too. So it's tough. It's like a night and day difference with this year free agency and last year, because this year they went a lot younger last year. It was a lot of younger players, not really as many veterans. Then they traded away Sauce. Then they traded away Quinnen Williams during the season. And by that time, most of the guys, like, for example, Quincy Williams, maybe even Jermaine Johnson to an extent, once they saw that Quinnen got traded, once they saw that Sauce got traded, and Garrett Wilson was injured and missed, pretty much a good portion of the season, they knew the season was over. They knew the season was toast. They weren't about to sit there and start risking injury, which is not a good way to look at it either, because when you get paid to play, it doesn't matter what team you play for. You got to give it even if it looks like the season is over, you got to put the maximum effort out there. And more times than not, I did feel like the Jets players quit. I also felt like the Jets coaches quit too, because they pretty much knew the season was done. So what are they coaching for at this point? And this year, you just see a difference in strategy. They added a few veterans. So they add guys that Glenn is comfortable with. David Onyemata played for him. He said right away, Glenn is the reason why I came here. I believe in him and everything. Same thing with Demario Davis. They know they are part of trying to change that culture. And it's and you just really see the difference. And listen, I can't say for certain if we still had Joe Douglas, for example, would anything be different. There's no way for me to know that. But you definitely get a sense that Darren Muji knows what he's doing. And now with the latest trade, and this is also another avenue we didn't really get a chance to talk to Jake about, because earlier this week, the Broncos traded for Jalen Waddle from Miami. So they traded away a first-round pick. They traded away, I think, a third-round pick this year and another pick next year. So now that Denver wide receiver room is awfully crowded because you have Cortland Sutton, you have Jalen Waddle, okay? And now you have guys like Marvin Mims Jr., Troy Franklin. These guys now might be available.
Mm-hmm.
So the question becomes, is that where Darren Muji finds his wide receiver too? Maybe a guy like Troy Franklin wouldn't be a bad option next to Garrett Wilson.
Well, not even that. Like, I think even it would be a nice depth piece to add like a Marvin Mims or a Troy Franklin, because they were decent wide receivers. And I think with whoever we draft at, say I firmly believe the 16th pick is going to be a wide receiver, whether it's Jordan Tyson from Arizona, whether it's Lemon from USC. I think it's fully going to believe. I fully believe it's going to be a wide receiver. So you say you bring in a Marvin Mims type. So now you have Garrett Wilson, rookie wide receiver, Marvin Mims, and A.D. Mitchell. That's not a bad wide receiver room, in my opinion.
No, it's not. And I don't know. The draft always gets a little funky when you get to the middle round, like the middle of the round, like the 15, 16 pick, because it could go all over the place. It's never really it's never as cut and dry. And guys you think might be in the first round all of a sudden make it to the second round. So, and the Jets pick 33rd. They have the first pick in the second round. I think they have the first pick in the second round.
Yes.
So right now, they're in a very good spot. They have plenty of draft capital to work with where they can make a trade. They can easily go through the draft. Even guys like Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana, I think Elijah Surratt's another one. There is a lot of talent in this draft. It almost makes me feel like the Jets should just listen. Having a veteran receiver is great, but if I'm going to go a veteran route, I'd rather trade for a guy that can make an impact than just try to bring in a guy like Christian Kirk. And it's not that I don't think Christian Kirk's a great receiver or anything, but he's not nearly as good as he used to be. And I don't really know if he I don't know if he makes that receiving core better. When I feel like we could draft two receivers, one at 16 and maybe even one at 44.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can focus your second overall pick on drafting like an Arvell Reese, like Jake said, or at 33, you can get a linebacker. I mean, there are so many ways you can go this route. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets trade out of 33, maybe trade down a little bit. Maybe they could try to find a way to get a third-round pick, which they don't have in this draft.
Right.
I mean, there's so many options, and that's what makes this kind of fun because, the Jets now 2 first-round picks this year, 2 second-rounders next year. Next year, I think they have 3 1s. And I think they only have 1 2. I don't think they have 2 second-rounders next year.
Yeah, it's if I'm not mistaken, it's 3 1s, 1 2, 1 3rd.
So there are just so many ways they can fix this. But you see the difference last year. I think last year felt like a weird evaluation year. Even though they told you they were winning, you never got the sense with the moves they made. The draft picks are different. Last year when they drafted Armand Membu, they had Azarie Thomas, they had Malachi Moore, Mason Taylor. But the free agent moves didn't scream to me that they were trying to win. It screamed to me like they wanted to get a better idea of if the guys on this roster can play. Now, my attitude is, if you really want to get rid of the stench of losing season after losing season after losing season, everybody's got to go. Everybody.
Yeah.
That means Brees. That means, not saying maybe everybody's a bit extreme, but the majority of the roster has to go. Brees, everybody's got to go. And that's what they kind of did in a way. They kept around the guys they felt they could keep, like Will McDonald. They'll probably pick up his 5th-year option. They're working on a deal with Brees. They re-signed Garrett Wilson to a lucrative extension. they're building a good offensive line with Membu and Fashanu. And Tippmann had a great year at guard last year. So you see the pieces starting to come together. So you knew that this offseason was going to be more about defense. They had to fix that defense. And while everybody kind of killed Brandon Stevens a lot of times, not really, I don't blame him so much. I think he was put in an unfair spot, especially after Sauce got traded, because he kind of went into a cornerback one role. That's not his role.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then the guys that were on the team, they kind of showed their true colors. You know, Jermaine Johnson kind of mailing it in the last few games of the season. You know, even to a lesser extent, Jamie Sherwood played like garbage. But the Jets had nothing. Like, they were literally putting out, and like, you're throwing Isaiah Williams out there. And what does it go to tell you that Isaiah Williams, who was signed off the street during the season, passes Arian Smith, a rookie who was on the team last year through training camp because he was drafted? He passes him on the depth chart. You're right. You know, you had to bring in A.D. Mitchell because A.D. Mitchell, you know, he was here the second half of the season. He wasn't there the first half of the season.
Right.
And it becomes a point where you just look back on that first year and you just feel like it was such a waste because they really just didn't make any moves. They didn't make any moves of significance in free agency.
Right.
And that's the tough part, you know. And then, of course, depending on what side of the fence you stand on with Justin Fields, he was terrible. I won't disagree there. But at the same time, I don't ever get the sense he was put in the best position to win under Tanner Engstrand.
No, I agree with you. And, you know, when you look at what made the Lions, you know, like if you look at like the Lions, you know, he was the passing game coordinator over there. And, you know, Jared Goff and Justin Fields are two different kinds of quarterbacks, you know. So you kind of had to figure that, okay, the system that he's bringing over from the Lions, it's not going to really work with the kind of offense that Jared Goff was running and what we've seen out of Justin Fields in the past. You know, it's not the same. Hence why the Raiders got rid of him. You know, he didn't work in that offense. You know, I mean, not the Raiders, the Steelers. This is why the Steelers got rid of him. He didn't really work well in that offense. You know, and you bring him in here and try to place him in this offense, and it clearly did not work. You know, he's a runner. Engstrand's offense is more pocket passing.
But this is also the problem with the way the Jets develop quarterbacks, because it kind of did the same thing to Zach Wilson.
Right.
It kind of made him into more of a pocket passer. He's not a pocket passer.
Yeah.
He's a guy that uses his legs. He's a guy that scrambles. I mean, we saw some runs by Zach Wilson during his time with the Jets, and they were very few and far between. But, like, you almost got the sense, like, why are the Jets so hell-bent on making this guy strictly a thrower? You know, like, he knows how to scramble. He knows how to, you know, he can. They barely ran any like read options with him or quarterback draws, anything. They barely run anything with him. And when Fields was his most dangerous when he had open field to run to run. And the Jets never really used that. They tried to make him so much into a pocket passer. He's not a pocket passer. It's not his style.
Right.
It's very easy to look at that when he was at Ohio State and he was playing a lot of garbage college teams, but in the pros, it's a totally different ballgame. So it frustrates me last year because now the more I see the way the Jets approach this year, I kind of wish they would approach last year the way they did this year. Having that flexibility with the cap, bringing in veteran players to go along with your young players. I mean, it's very refreshing to see them making these moves, but at the same time, it bothers me so much. Last year bothers me so much more because I felt like there was not much of an effort to bring in like solid veteran players during free agency.
Yeah, no, I 1,000% agree with you. Like you said, like it was all guys on like 1-year deals to see like, oh, let's see if they pan out, if they do this. You know, we all knew Justin Fields was a low risk, high reward, you know, kind of signing. And I think that's what a lot of these, you know, signings were. And you see like all these guys who were brought in on 1-year deals not being brought back. The only one who was brought back was Andre Cisco because he wasn't awful last year. He's a nice depth piece to have at safety.
But we'll see what happens. Right now at this point, my guess is the Jets will be pretty quiet until the draft. I don't expect anything. Maybe like a spot move here or there. Somebody falls through. Or maybe somebody by trade. But yeah, I think they pretty much did the bulk of their work during last week's free agency, and now I think they're just going to be gearing towards the draft. And man, if Jeremiah Love keeps moving up the way that I keep reading about, the Jets could wind up, if they really, really wanted to trade out of 2, hypothetically, they could get a haul for that pick.
Oh, yeah.
And I know it sounds ridiculous, especially if it's a team like Tennessee who might want to move from 4 to 2. But if it's a pick in like the 5 or 6 area, I'm telling you, man, I really think they could get a lot for it. They might take the plunge. And they might say to themselves at the end of the day, you know what, we didn't get Arvell Reese, but we could wind up with Reuben Bain, and that may not be as bad. Or maybe Sonny Styles. Maybe Caleb Downs. I mean, there's a lot of options right now with, in this draft. I'd be very happy with Arvell Reese at number 2.
Yeah, I would rather have a David Bailey type, just because Will McDonald, the jury's still out on him, so I don't really know if he's the pass rusher of the future. But we get a David Bailey type. He's got long arms. He's got good speed off the line. He had over like 12 sacks last year for Texas Tech, and he was on the best defense in college football. So I personally would love David Bailey more than Arvell Reese, but I wouldn't hate Arvell Reese.
Part of me thinks the reason why they like Arvell Reese is because they can move him around to be a linebacker, like a stand-up linebacker, as well as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
He's very young. He's only 20 years old. But he could be very elite. He has the most upside of any prospect, and a lot of people think he is the best prospect in the NFL draft overall. Mm-hmm. And perhaps if the Raiders didn't need a quarterback, Arvell Reese is probably the number 1 overall pick. But It's obvious it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. But at the same time, keep an eye on this Jeremiah Love thing, because, like I said, he's shooting up draft boards. There's a lot of teams that want him. The Giants want him. I'm sure the Giants would want him. The Titans probably would want him. They got rid of Tony Pollard. I mean, I don't know, maybe Cleveland, but Cleveland just had Quinshon Judkins, who actually, he broke his leg too, so that could be a part of it. But, Arizona's a team that might like him. They might want to go for him because they're probably running it back with Jacoby Brissett this year. James Conner is back with the team, although he's coming off a major injury. I don't really know what to make of their feelings for Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point, but a guy like Jeremiah Love for them could be a difference maker. And there might be some teams who get a little spooked out, and they say to themselves, man, he may not make it past Arizona at 3. Yeah. So we got to try to see if we can make a deal with the Jets at 2. And if I'm the Jets, I mean, if you can try to get at least, obviously you move down. I wouldn't move down too far. Try to stay within the top 6 if you can. But, get what you can get, because like I said, this is an interesting draft because there are some people who think Jeremiah Love could be 2 overall. A lot of people like Arvell Reese, but I'm also reading about Sonny Styles now all of a sudden falling into that number 2 overall spot, because it could be one of those things where if the Jets really love him, you got to take him now. Can't take him.
The Jets got to hit on this draft. If they don't hit on this draft, it's we can't mess up with these first 4 picks. We cannot mess up. Whatever it is, whoever it is, whether it's Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Jordan Tyson, Jacob Rodriguez, whoever it is we take with these first 4 picks, they can't be bad picks. They have to be. These are going to be the cornerstone of our franchise for the next 5+ years.
And it's one of those things where, they hold a lot of the cards, man. The Jets hold a lot of cards right now, and that's exactly the type of position Darren Muji wants to be in. Mm-hmm. Because he can dictate where the draft goes. He has the number 2 overall pick. So after Mendoza, he could take the guy he wants, or he can try to fleece a team, move down in the draft, get more young players, and let a team come up to get the team they want, to get the player they want. Right. He really does. We don't realize it, and the more we're talking about it, the more we see it, that he holds a lot of the cards right now. He holds the palm of this draft in his hands, whether you want to believe it or not, because he can go in so many different directions right now. He could shock the world and take a guy like Sonny Styles. He could go the route that everyone expects him to and take Arvel Reese. Or he could trade down and get more picks, perhaps recoup that third-round pick they lost in the Hassan Reddick trade. Maybe even get another 2.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So it'll be a lot of fun to watch. The draft is right around the corner. Before you know it, Clem, it's going to be here.
I know. I'm excited.
And then it's going to be crazy. And then that's when I think you'll see the Jets they'll wait till after the draft, after, the dust settles. And then you'll see them maybe attack certain areas of free agency to just kind of round out the roster.
Yeah.
So, you got anything else before we get out of here?
That is it for me.
All right. I'm just going to say one thing really quickly about WrestleMania. All right. And then we're going to go. I can honestly say for a fact that I am not the least bit excited for this WrestleMania.
Same. Agreed.
I cannot get into these feuds at all. And I know WWE's trying. Well, they're not trying that hard, but they're trying. I will hate the fact that Roman Reigns is going to win the title over Punk. And they're going to they're going to run it back again with the Bloodline. That's where it's going. It's pretty obvious. They're going to run it back again with the Bloodline, which I think is a terrible idea. An absolutely terrible idea. I think that WWE missed the boat on making Cody Rhodes a heel. Not that I don't like Orton as a heel. I love Randy Orton as a heel. But it's time for Cody's character to change.
Yeah.
Orton's kind of like in that Stone Cold Steve Austin type of phase. Even when he's a heel, he's going to get cheered. He's going to get pops like crazy. Cody's act is getting a little stale. And part of me thought it was the better move to make him the heel than Orton. At the same time, I hate what they're doing to Drew McIntyre.
No.
Drew McIntyre deserves a long title run. And they went back to putting it on Cody, and that was a massive mistake. Because now we're running it back with the same shit with Reigns as one champion, Cody as the other champion. It's a terrible decision. And I don't know if it's TKO influenced or if it's Triple H being Triple H, but I think it's a terrible decision to put the belt back on Cody.
No, I thought it was too. When Drew lost that, Drew's been dealt a shit hand with these.
He's been. Oh, I totally agree there. He is.
It was unfortunate when he won the Rumble 6 years ago. It was unfortunate that a month after, we were all hit with a COVID pandemic. So, and he did his best to try and carry the title through the no arena shows, and to an extent he did what he could, and that was a shit run, but he never got anything really after that. And now where it's like, okay, good, you put the title on him again, great, but then you take it right off of him again. So now it's like, come on, man, you're just throwing the guy some bone here at this point. It's like, give him a real storyline, give him a real run with the title, and it'll be good.
He's an incredible heel, and he's one of those guys that I would hate to see ever turn face.
Right.
There are guys right now in wrestling like Drew, like Gunther, should never be heels, never be faces. Excuse me. Gunther is a terrific heel. Playing up the whole I retired John Cena with that pompous attitude and stuff. It's like a nice little wrinkle to his character that wasn't there before. That was pretty badass. Drew, just the look, the accent, just his promos have been outstanding. I don't understand why they just don't give him a lengthy title run. He's definitely earned it, but none of these matches do anything for me. I mean, Brock Lesnar, Obafemi will probably be a really good match. And I was listening to What's Wrong with Wrestling, and they were right, though. Oba shouldn't lose that match.
Right.
But now there's all these stories that Brock doesn't want to lose another match. So it doesn't make any sense to put Obafemi in that match. I mean, I'm tired of the Judgment Day. I've had enough of the Judgment Day. Like, can we please move on from this already? I was not a big fan of Becky Lynch's character.
Yeah, no, same.
It's too much. I feel like she's overacting. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now I don't know. There's just nothing about this Mania where I can sit here and go, man, I'm really excited to see this match. I don't really want to see Punk Reigns because I already know what the outcome's going to be. They're going to put the belt on Reigns.
Yeah.
And I know the Usos are going to probably interfere in some way, shape, or form.
If not the Usos, it's someone else in the bloodline.
Yeah. And honestly, and this is where WWE, in my opinion, has kind of jumped the shark a little bit. Enough with the masked men already. Like, I'm so tired of this. The hoodie, the black hoodie wrestler, whoever it is, you know. And it was like, when they did it with Austin Theory, you could hear a pin drop in that arena.
Because no one cares.
Like, Heyman, that was a big miss by Heyman, by the way. Because Heyman was the one who pushed for Austin Theory. He likes Austin Theory. He thinks Austin Theory is going to be has a great future with the company. But he's not over. He had the window to be over when Vince was still in charge, and Vince squashed him. That's it. That's it with Austin Theory. He's done. He got an opportunity, and then Vince squashed it because he wasn't getting over with the crowd. But it frustrates me to watch a guy like that get chance after chance. And then meanwhile, a guy like Sami Zayn, who's like over with the crowd, doesn't, can't even get a title shot or just get a title. Like, he should be a winner. Sami Zayn against Drew McIntyre for the title would have probably been a really good match. It may not have looked that way on paper, but it would probably been an awesome match.
Well, but that's the WWE's MO for years. Whatever, like, if someone's over, they'll never give them a proper title run. But meanwhile, they'll give these schlups a title run. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
And it's so frustrating because, like, you just see the same tired act, like, over and over. It's rinse and repeat. We're right back to where we started again. And now it's going to be, and think about it, it's amazing how the Vision faction just completely crumbled.
Mm-hmm.
Not entirely their fault because Seth got hurt and then Breaker got hurt. So now it's basically like, and then Bronson Reed got hurt. Bronson Reed, I think, tore his bicep or his tricep. So now it's basically just Logan Paul and Austin Theory. I mean, you want to talk about a faction that completely fell apart, like, quick. But I can honestly say, man, I am not looking forward to this Mania at all.
Neither am I. I'll still watch it, obviously, but not excited.
Yeah, just the same, going to be the same shtick. I guess in a way, it's a good thing they didn't do Lesnar against LA Knight because then he would just get squashed.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, and I think Lesnar and Obafemi would be a good match. Granted, Obafemi goes over,
right?
Not Lesnar.
You can't build up a guy like that just for Brock Lesnar to come back and be squashed.
Yeah. It's like what bothered me. Remember when Kofi was the champion?
Yeah.
And the first night that they had Fox on, when SmackDown was on Fox 5, on Fox TV. And they built up Kofi against Lesnar and, and the match was literally 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Completely squashed Kofi. And that was it for Kofi. His career that's it. As a main eventer, he was done.
Yeah.
It was never the same after that, and he's never been the same since.
And you can make arguments that WrestleMania, that match between Kofi and Daniel Bryan was not only one of the most hyped matches of all time, it's one of the better matches of all time. Like, that was a great WrestleMania match.
It's so frustrating right now because I'm like such a huge fan of WWE and everything. And like I can't even really watch AEW because what they're doing is just like it's just nothing but shock value. It's like torture porn.
Yeah, they brought my girl back.
Who?
Ronda.
Oh, Ronda. Yeah.
Yeah.
To like a mediocre pop.
I know. Like I said, I'll still love Ronda but it's like you said, I know she's not great on the mic. I know she's not a great wrestler, but it's like you just said, they're pulling at straws to try and get a pop for the crowd.
But MJF, like for example, like again, I find his shtick a little overrated. The whole thing with the syringe during the match with Hangman. I mean, do I really need to be seeing this?
No.
Darby Allin, like one step away from literally killing himself, like committing suicide on national television. Because he has to push the bar more and more.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know how much, but like that's the difference between a company like Tony Khan, who pretty much lets those guys do whatever they want.
Yeah.
There's no checks and balances in that federation. There's no way there is. Those guys want to do whatever they want, and it's all for shock value. It's all for ratings. Yeah. And to be honest, their ratings aren't even that good.
No, it's what AEW is just a glorified, like, high production indie show. That's all it is.
But it's all just
Totally.
spots. It's all spot. Whenever
Yeah.
Ricochet wrestles, it's all spots. When it's MJF in a death match, it's all spots. It's just, but it's just alarming to me that WWE has really kind of, in a way, kind of fallen off a cliff.
Yeah.
They're just not building up wrestlers like they used to, and it's just going back to the old guard. And I think that's more the TKO influence of it than it is like whenever Vince was there or whenever Triple H was really seriously in charge.
Right.
So, all right, on that note, that's going to do it for tonight's show, the Moffett on the Mic show. Again, a very special thank you to the one and only Jake Asman for being on our show. You can catch Jake's show literally every day, as he's always posting YouTube content, always has some great interviews. You want to check out interviews with Rich Samini. He did an interview with Manish Mehta that he took a lot of slack for that interview, to be honest. I was watching, he was interviewed by Chris Carlin and Bart Scott, and Chris Carlin took issue with him having Manish on his show. But hey, listen, sometimes it's go big or go home, and it's a smart play by Jake to bring in a guy that will have people talking, and that's really the whole point of it. So kudos to Jake for making that happen. That's a great job by him to get him on the show. But check out Jake's stuff. He's always posting stuff every day regarding the Jets on his YouTube channel. He is a regular. He's a part-time on ESPN Radio, and he's all over the place. And we're very happy for his success. And when he always takes the time to come on our show to talk sports with us, it means a lot to us. Means the world. So we really appreciate Jake for doing that. Clem, thank you for holding it down like you normally do. You can follow me on Instagram at Moff on the Mic. You can catch the show on Spotify. Are we on Apple Podcasts yet, or is that?
I'm still working on that. They're being finicky with some stuff.
Okay, so for now, catch us on Spotify. Download us, give us a good review. It really means the world to us. And you can also check out my Facebook page as well. If you want to read my Jets content, I am on JetsWire, part of USA Today. So you can definitely check out my stuff there. And on behalf of Clem, this is Craig. And wherever you are, stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the tournament. We don't really talk about it because we don't really know that much about NCAA basketball to really give you an opinion. But March Madness is always a fun time of year. It's always a time of, everybody doing their brackets, everybody getting them wrong a lot of times. And all I can tell you is the key to winning your tournament pool is you got to hit the upsets. If you hit the upsets, you got a good chance. So good luck to Hofstra in the tournament. Good luck to Long Island University in the tournament. So, and good luck to the Johnnies, man. It's always good to see St. John's back in the spotlight. It definitely is a lot of fun to watch, and we wish them the best as well. So again, on behalf of Clem, this is Craig, and everybody enjoy the rest of your week. We'll be back next week with a new show of Moffett on the Mic on Spotify. Until then, take care, everybody. Have a good one.